The war between Iran and America is no longer just a Middle East problem. It has become a global one. And the reason is simple: oil. As oil routes choke, economies panic. What followed has been days of destructions, diplomatic dead ends, and two of the world's most critical oil routes hanging by a thread. Donald Trump had previously put forward a 15-point plan to end the war. The government of Iran turned down that plan and instead came forward with its own terms. Tehran told Washington to pay for all the damage caused, to pull every foreign military base away from Iran's borders, to hand over full control of the Strait of Hormuz, and to put a permanent end to any attacks on Iranian soil. Those were the demands. Take them or leave them. As we speak, there hasn't been any real movement on the ground. Trump says Iran is on its knees asking for talks, while Iran says America is having a conversation with the mirror. Pakistan is reportedly stepping in as a bridge between the two countries as they struggle to reach each other. Only hours ago, Donald Trump fired yet another warning at Iran, saying that the United States could level Iran's civilian infrastructure if a deal is not put together soon. The Strait of Hormuz remains a pressure point. Only a handful of ships are getting through, mostly from nations that Iran considers allies. Those carrying American interests get turned away. Several vessels have either been sunk or taken out by Iran since this whole thing began. As you may know, the world runs on oil. We simply cannot function without it. Oil is the blood of global economic activity. Every day, the entire world burns through around 105 million barrels of oil, give or take. That works out to roughly 16.7 billion liters every single day. Before this war, about 20% of that 16.7 billion liters moved through the Strait of Hormuz. But now, with traffic down to almost nothing, the global oil supply has taken a hit. Countries that previously depended on the Strait of Hormuz must now go hunting for supply elsewhere. Some people might ask, if ships are struggling to get through the Strait of Hormuz, why are countries not turning to planes to fly the oil? After all, planes are the safest and fastest way to move things around, right? Well, yes, you're right. Planes are very fast. But the challenge is how much oil they can actually carry. Volume is the wall they run into. The largest cargo plane on Earth can only haul less than 2,000 barrels of oil. On the other hand, one oil tanker can move about 2 million barrels in a single voyage. So to do the job of one tanker, you would need more than 1,000 plane trips. And as we all know, flights don't come cheap. You would burn through a mountain of fuel and lose days going back and forth. So even though planes are faster, they are simply not built for this kind of work. Ships remain the backbone of oil movement because they can shift enormous quantities at a fraction of the cost. It is widely known that about 70% of all the oil traded globally travels by sea. But the war is not staying in one place. It is spreading. It has now reached a country called Yemen. A rebel group operating out of this country has been raining rockets into Israel. The group goes by the name the Houthis. It is one of the armed factions kept alive by Iran's money and weapons. They have made it clear that they will keep striking Israel until the attacks on Iran are brought to a halt. And what makes this a direct threat to you and me is the kind of moves the Houthis are now putting on the table. Let me give you the background. Yemen sits at the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula. The Arabian Peninsula is a vast landmass in Asia, home to Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, and Yemen. This region has been the cradle of Arab civilization and the birthplace of Islam. It carries the name Peninsula because water wraps around most of it, yet it remains tied to the rest of Asia. Only the northern edge connects to the Asian mainland. Everything else is surrounded by open water. The water running along the eastern side of the Arabian Peninsula is called the Persian Gulf. It stands between Iran and the Arab nations. The Arab countries that line the Persian Gulf are known as Gulf states, and the oil they pump out is what the world calls Gulf oil. Most of this oil is shipped out through the Persian Gulf, and to exit the Gulf, ships must squeeze through a tight, narrow passage between Oman and Iran, And that passage is the Strait of Hormuz. On the other side, the water on the western edge of the Arabian Peninsula is called the Red Sea. It draws a line between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. Egypt, Eritrea, and Djibouti sit on the African side. Saudi Arabia and Yemen sit on the Arabian Peninsula side. So why does any of this matter? Because the Red Sea is one of the main highways for global oil movement. Ships making the journey from Asia to Europe through the Suez Canal have no choice but to cut through the Red Sea. And just like the Strait of Hormuz, this route has its own tight passage, a narrow corridor sitting between Yemen and Africa called the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. This strait has become a lifeline for Saudi Arabia, especially now that the Strait of Hormuz is under siege. It cannot push through as much oil as Hormuz, but it is still pulling its weight. Before this war broke out, somewhere between 6 and 7 million barrels of oil passed through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait each day. That is about 12% of all the oil shipped by sea across the entire world. So even though it plays second fiddle to Hormuz, it is still carrying serious weight. And if this route gets choked off as well, the damage to global oil supply would be severe. And that is exactly what is looming on the horizon. The Houthis are now making noise about shutting down ships in the Red Sea and through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. They want to drag the same kind of chaos that has gripped the Strait of Hormuz all the way into the Red Sea. If that door closes too, even less oil will find its way to Europe, Asia, and the rest of the world. What follows is straightforward. Deeper shortages, fuel prices climbing through the roof, and factories, transport networks, and ordinary daily life feeling the squeeze.